I unironically heard somebody refer to himself as a meat popsicle today.
I had ice cream for dinner last night. It's a mistake. Don't do it.
Start the game already!
I didn't get much sleep last night.
No?
No.
I've been a little short on sleep the last few nights, too. The other way around, though, I've been getting up early and just not being able to get back to sleep.
I think I recognize that can. Is that a Jameson whiskey and ginger?
It's a Jameson whiskey lemonade, but close.
Yes. I think there's some ginger in it, too.
Maybe. It doesn't say anything.
Oh. They must have more than one flavor.
I have that. I've got the Moosehead Rattler. Some pamplemousse.
Pamplemousse. I have a Whitewater White-Faced Monster Canadian Hazy IPA, which may also be a mistake. We will find out.
So what have you been up to?
Well, I finished tied for third in my golf club championship, which is pretty good. I won a hat. For those of you who are, subscribed to the Patreon channel, there's the video with the picture of the hat. Just so y'all know, that's just Shane and I who have that subscription. Yeah, and I've actually joined the club team, so I have a tournament to go to week after. Well, today is Friday, right? I get all screwed up.
I think so.
Yeah, so not this weekend coming, but the following weekend, I actually have a tournament to go to where I'm going to compete as a part of the club team, which...
Ooh.
I mean, it's not really a big deal, but it's kind of a big deal for me because I've never really done anything. I haven't done anything competitive since high school, which was in the 80s of last century.
So I have probably a dumb question for you.
Shoot.
I don't understand golf much. I think I've made that sort of abundantly clear. I enjoy getting out once every 3 years and whacking some balls, and that's about it.
Yep.
People are always talking about handicap, and we got into it a little bit a couple of episodes ago. When you go into a tournament like you just did, do you just throw that all away and it's raw strokes at that point, or are you scoring relative to some sort of curve related to your handicap?
Both. It's flighted, which basically means that because handicaps aren't perfect, right? And they don't perfectly reflect sort of skill level. They kind of reflect what the average of your best, like on your best day is what it kind of measures. Mm-hmm. So in order to make it fair, what they do is they split people up into sort of chunks called flights. And A flight are the people who are, all the way from their handicap is 0 or better to usually 5 or 6. I think it goes up to 7 or 8 at our club. And then B flight, which is where I am, goes kind of from 8 to 15. And then there's C and D and G. And then there's some people who don't actually keep a handicap. So because it's official, right? Like there's an official body that maintains that. I can look up anyone's handicap if I know their name. So they can't fiddle. But the club champion, like the person who actually gets the trophy and gets their name on the board, they have to play like that. That is recorded with no handicap at all. And then there are generally prizes that go down from there based on your handicap, right? So each flight typically has a gross winner, which is like that is what your score was, and you had the best score. And there's a net winner, which is your score minus your handicap.
Okay. So when you finished third, was that third in your flight then, or some sort of
yes.
like calculated? Okay.
Yeah, that was third in my flight, and it was third in my flight net. I finished, I think, tied for 9th gross. So still pretty good. I mean, I shot 90 and 86, which is pretty good for me in a competitive setting. I started with an 8, and I got an 8 on 1 and 10, and then the rest of it was good, right? But I did really badly on the first hole. And in my youth, I would have gone, well, that's it. The round's over. And this time it was like, okay, well, now it's just a fun day. Like, I'm not going to win anything, but who cares? I'm playing golf and that's awesome. So, I went and had fun. I played with, fun people every day. And there's always, like I don't drink on the golf course. I tend to have a beer after, but there's lots of people who have like a couple along the way. So it's generally a fun time, just some relaxing things. And most of the people at my golf club are very much blue collar type people, right? Like they're just regular folks. It's not like a country club thing that you like what you see on Caddyshack or, all the rich folks.
So do you have people that really like shift gears into try hard mode for these tournaments where they just take everything incredibly seriously?
There's a few. There's a couple of golfers at our club who are actually better than scratch golfers. So yeah, there's a few of them that take it really seriously. Not so seriously that there's ever like trouble, but there's a few people who take it seriously enough that they slow down a bit.
Yeah.
To the point where like in those kind of tournament rounds, like a typical round, like I played 9 holes this morning with, the 3 old guys that I play with. And we were slow today because we were all walking. And we finished in just under 2 hours for 9 holes. Typically, like there'll be 2 of them in carts, right? And then like one or the other of us will hop into a cart for rides up hills and stuff. So we generally finish 18 holes in like 3 hours and 45 minutes. And on tournament days, you can expect your round to take 5 hours. Part of the reason for that too is that when you're playing, like even when I'm playing in Stableford or league play or whatever, it's typically either Stableford, which is a slightly different scoring system, or match play, where it's like when you've lost the hole, you're done. You can pick up. So if you lose a golf ball, typically, that's a thing that happens, right? You hit a tee shot, it goes into the bush. In the club championship, you can't do anything else but what the rules say, which is you drop another ball and you hit again. And if you keep hitting it into like a water hazard or something, you keep going until you have one in play.
Yeah.
Right. And in a friendly round, it's like, well, that one's lost. I'm out of the hole. I'll just drop one and play for fun. Right. And you don't worry about it. But in a tournament, the rules are more stringent.
And you don't have like a max stroke count per hole then at all?
No.
Wow.
Yep. You go until the ball hits the bottom of the hole. Most of the people who come out for the club championships are the sort of people who are going to break 100 fairly regularly.
Yeah.
So, they're going to maybe lose an 18-hole round. They're going to lose 2 or 3 balls. It's just like every group is getting held up for an extra 10 minutes here or there. It just, the whole course backs up for about an extra hour.
But as long as it's, your several times a year tournaments or whatever and not every weekend kind of thing, then that's fine.
No, it's typically like sort of the middle of August. Like there's like 3 weeks or I guess there's about 6 weeks of tournaments in total because they start at sort of the first weekend in August and then finish the second week of September. Like, because there's junior tournaments, there's a ladies tournament, there's a men's, there's a closing tournament, there's a couple of interclub things, stuff like that. I was going to say something and I forgot what it was. It's not really important. Anyway, beer is good.
Beer is good. So you had potentially some serious topic discussion for the second episode in a row.
Yeah. I'm hesitant to bring up a whole lot of serious topics because I know that, first of all, there's like everybody in the world is talking about all of the serious shit, right? We don't need another podcast that's full of those serious, social and political topics.
I mean, we did have a serious topic last week, and that was one of the things that we discussed was sort of tuning out all of the noise of people just doing and saying the same things and nothing ever changing.
Yes. Well, this one, I kind of like, I wanted to bring it around to kind of a nerdy bent because it's something that I noticed, something I noticed that you and I do a bit. Mm-hmm. And as we've gotten older, it's definitely gotten a lot more relaxed. But like, if you remember back to the days of like, who's got the faster video card? And we've discussed this before where I was always like, wow, Shane's got a faster video card than I do. And you're like, well, no, you always had a faster video card than I did. And I'm like, that's just like, it's ridiculous. Right. So the topic is basically like, there's also, I noticed in the last episode, because I listened back to it, that I say like a lot and I want to stop.
I cut out more likes than you probably know, which means the ones that are left in because they can't seamlessly cut them out always.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably about 30%. Like I cut,
cut a
solid 70% out. You and I both say like, and you know,
Oh, yeah.
and a lot of ums. Like you can tell
yeah.
we are definitely on-air personalities with radio talent. We were born to podcast, baby. You know?
We were born to make the editor absolutely lose his mind. Yeah. So what I was thinking about was the sort of binary nature of everything that is fed to us. And of course, what sort of sparked it in my mind was the political division that's existing in the world, and how much of that is pushed by media sources of all kinds, including podcasters, us, social media, the traditional media, et cetera, et cetera. But it also comes down to things like the commodification of things, right? And the sort of sportification of all things, like Intel versus AMD, or NVIDIA versus Radeon back in the day. And everything seems to be like sort of forced into a binary decision tree. It's either Ford or Chevy, which doesn't make sense. Like, they both make good stuff and they both make shitty stuff, depending. But there was a time, I guess, in the 50s where it became almost like this neighborhood belongs to this brand.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of it is just someone in a room somewhere figuring out how do we use human nature in order to make people buy our things, which was definitely a thing after World War II, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how much of it is just naturally the tribal nature of humanity. And can we fix it? And should we fix it?
I mean, we probably should fix it, or at least try and moderate it and recognize it when it happens. I grew up in one of those families where I look back on it now and I see a lot of it that I didn't see, of course, at the time when I was younger, right? And some of the biases that come out of it, I still kind of have. You mentioned the Ford versus Chevy thing. Like, this was a common one, right?
Oh, yeah.
My old man and other members of the family, like, they had, I'm the Ford guy, I'm the Chevy guy. It's all I buy. It doesn't matter if it's the crap version or the good version. Did they do a significant change this model year, which means the first, year or two of this are probably going to be lemons until they sort of work out all of the kinks, in which case it's going to be solid for another decade, blah, 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 blah. My dad was always sort of a Chevy guy, absolutely hated Fords, found on the road dead. And really didn't like Chryslers much at all, even though we had like a Plymouth Caravelle in the late 80s for a little while, and it sucked. Like, it was always a problem, which probably reinforced that idea. I've sort of carried that mentality on. But, and I'm going to put some caveats here, I've always been a Chevy guy, and the reason why I'm a Chevy guy has been less about Chevy specifically and more about the idea of General Motors and sort of some of the principles that GM is a shitty company. So don't take anything I say as being a defense of General Motors. But sort of in the context of when I was buying cars and, it was more of a regular part of my life. Now I buy a car that's new or newish and it lasts me a decade, and then I'll buy another one or whatever. But back then, and this is going to go into some conversation about things like AMD versus Intel and stuff like that, I was either always looking for budget and deal, right? Mm-hmm. Or rooting for sort of scrappy underdog and wanting to support that. In the case of General Motors and Chevy, at the time when I was trying to be cheap and frugal and I was working on my own car a lot and fixing it and doing a lot of my own service, this doesn't apply to like Ford as competition so much, but what there was such a disparity in the cost of OEM parts, right? Like, try and buy, a brake rotor for an 85 Chevy, whatever, and then buy something for a Volkswagen of the same model year.
Oh, it's at least 4 times as much.
Right. And some of that comes down to original equipment costs. Some of it comes down to who they're licensing as third parties to manufacture the product, yada, 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 yada. So that reinforced my we're a Chevy guy, we're a Chevy family mentality for a lot of years. I drive a Hyundai Santa Fe now, so I've obviously gotten over that. I don't feel the need to buy domestic. I think a lot of the commodity import manufacturers had figured out we need to be able to compete on budget for a lot of this stuff. And also, probably a bigger deal, repairability has just completely gone, right?
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't save you time or money to work on your own car very much now, with the exception of a couple of things. Change and rotate your tires, do your oil change and filter, stuff like that. If you have an inclination, the average person could still do that, but almost everything else in a vehicle is so difficult, hard to work on, requires specialty tools, or you practically have to disassemble the whole bloody engine to get at something anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I spent a lot of years in my youth underneath a car working on it, not because I liked it or wanted to, but because it was going to save me a buck. And that reinforced a lot of the decisions and mentality that I had made about that kind of stuff at the time. But it reinforced the biases that were already there.
Yes. Just to go back to the oil change thing, I can't actually change my oil cheaper than I can have someone else do it. Or rather, I can't do it. I think it saves me about $8 to change it myself.
Yeah.
And then I got to figure out what to do with the used oil. And, in my youth, when, the environment wasn't a problem, that was sarcasm. I would just dig a hole and dump it, right?
Yeah.
Return it where it goes. That's a bad thing to do. Don't do that. I regret doing it now. I won't do that anymore. So now I take it to a place where they will actually recycle it into something that's useful. I mean, ideally, we wouldn't use it at all, but yeah, and I sort of feel the same way. I tend to look at import cars a lot more so because they are more expensive to repair, but I find that like total cost of ownership is often lower, right? So when they break, it's more expensive, but they break slightly less often.
To a certain extent, I think that's true. It depends on what you're importing, right?
Yes, it's true. Again, model, year, what their practices were at that time, who was in charge, et cetera, et cetera.
I think there's still this sort of like external cachet kind of thing with some of the imports that makes resale values for them a little bit higher, which if you're going to be like flipping a car to buy something newer at some point is going to factor into your decision-making process. I know there's a lot of Volkswagen fans out there. I have never found, anecdotally, my circle of friends, I know a lot of people that swear by Volkswagens, that they've been any more reliable than anything else. If anything, I would say in the last 15 years, probably less reliable.
They have definitely come down in quality. There's quite a few manufacturers, Honda specifically, have publicly stated that they have lowered their quality standards to make price because they have, Toyota has done it as well, where they've lowered their quality standards, not to a dangerous degree, but to it's no longer, A1 premium. It's now like A minus, just to reduce costs and price because you got to compete. And how do you compete? You've got to race to the bottom.
Yeah. And I think it's probably safe to say that the lifespan of the average car is lower now. And it's not necessarily about the car, but also the perception of cars as they age. Like people, it's a consumable. We're always after the new shiny. It's like, your latest iPhone situation, right? Where it's like, our car's not even 10 years old now. I think we've only got maybe about 170K on it or 160K. So not a ton of mileage, but enough that if we wanted to, we could probably spend some money on treating it right and then get another 10 years out of it or 5 years out of it. But even I am sort of on that point where it's like, okay, well, it's the point where it's going to start becoming less reliable. We're now, I think, 2 years after our warranty would have been up. There's some known issues with this particular engine that are only going to worsen, and there's no solution besides replace it. It's one of the first GDIs of the Hyundais and Kias, and they have a valve issue where you end up with carbonization around it, and then it just won't seal properly, which means you start burning oil. Oil consumption goes way up, and it's the solution is keep putting oil in it, or if you were subject to enough recall stuff, there's still recourse even out of warranty for getting an engine change done. We wouldn't have qualified for that kind of stuff. And, this all sounds like a lot. Like, our car has been amazing for us. Never had any issues, aside from the minor sort of recall stuff that happens with every car where it's like, oh, yeah, come in. Next time you come in, we'll just we'll change out this wiring harness, or there was an issue with my trailer hitch kit or something like that. The car's been great. I'm talking about it like it's falling apart. I have no regrets about buying it. It's been a good 7-8 years or whatever it's been. And you know what? I really like it. I know you've been a big fan of your Subarus. That particular run of Hyundai's, the Santa Fe's in particular, and the Tucsons were basically identical. From our year, 2017, through till I think about 2022, I just really like them. I like the way they look. For a car that was relatively inexpensive for that style of vehicle, looked classy. I mean, there was the versions that looked like a little bit more toy car-ish, a little more plastic and stuff like that. But they kept options available that looked like a more expensive car, and they sort of sold it convincingly. I hate the new Santa Fe's. I think they're uglier than fuck. I understand why they sort of deviated and kept the Tucsons the way they were, because I don't know. I'm making numbers up at this point, so don't feel the need to fact check me, anyone. But we had a Santa Fe. There was a person that parked beside us at our old place that had a Tucson. And as far as I could tell, the difference was the Tucson was about 4 inches shorter and otherwise almost identical.
Probably largely the same parts as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I mean, with sister company being Kia, the Sportage shared a lot of the non-cosmetic parts as well, too. So,
yeah, the Subaru has treated us well. The Impreza that I had a timing belt, so I had to change that because I had to change head gaskets in it. So it cost me I bought that one used, and it treated me pretty well. I mean, I think I paid $5,000 for it. I probably put $5,000 into it. I drove it for 8 years, I want to say, and I sold it for just about $5,000. So, like, it definitely didn't owe me anything. And the Forester we bought new, which honestly I wouldn't do again. Like, it was a good experience. Like, Subaru treated us well, but money being what it is, you're better off to buy a year or two old. But it's 10 years old now. I think it's getting up close to 300,000 kilometers. And we've changed the turbo in it because it had a little bit of an oil leak. Not because it broke or it needed it. It was just like, it's this time or next time or sometime in the next year. So do it now. And otherwise, it's been like brakes. That's it.
It's funny how that like changes, the economy interest, like it all applies. When we were buying in 2017, when we bought the Santa Fe, we were looking used initially. And what we found at the time was like the interest rate difference for buying used versus buying new was so high that we were actually paying more to buy used for something that had around 75 to 90K on it, that was a couple of years old, than we were paying to buy brand new with a like 6-year warranty.
Yeah. And that's what we actually leased the Subaru when we got it, because I did the math about, okay, so here's my lease payment for, I think we leased it for 4 years. So this is how much I'm going to pay out in lease payments. At the end of it, this is how much I'm going to buy it out for. And it was cheaper to do that than it was to pay cash for it. Like, it was bonkers. I'm like, okay. Yeah. And the other thing is that, like, at the end of the lease, the Subaru holds its value so well that at the end of the lease, I could buy it out and sell it for more money than I just bought it out for. So, like, I'll just buy it. Again, if I was to do it again, it's like there's a kind of a balance to be found. We're way off the topic that I wanted to talk about, but this is fun too. So, like, there's a balance to be found between, like, do I have enough money to make the payments for a vehicle that I have to get to where I need to go, versus pay cash for it, which is more money now but less overall in the long run. I'm not qualified to give you advice on that, but I definitely looked at, I don't have the cash to buy anything outright, but I can definitely make these payments as long as I don't get fired.
Well, here's my advice, and I believe that I'm right.
Choose richer parents.
No, yes, yes. My advice is when you're buying, look at all the options.
Yes.
Because the right option probably changes from month to month, year to year, depends on what you're into. Don't just assume, because if you assume, you're going to be paying more.
Yeah. Do the math. Always do the math. So, Intel versus AMD, which one of those is better now?
AMD, and it's not even close. Like Intel is in such a terrible position everywhere. Business practices, money, investment, outlook, the actual product, that like I can't even root for them as an underdog. Like there was a period not that long ago before Zen came out that AMD was in that position where just like their product was shit, the company was this close to folding, where I could at least still root for them as an underdog and say, okay, I'm not going to actually give you my money for anything, but
But I wish
like
you well.
Yeah, I wish you well. I like your moxie, kid. You know, make something that's worth spending money on. And they did. They made sound business decisions that were rooted in engineering. They took the long view, which is even more rare, and said, look, here's our roadmap. We are going to lose money for a little bit. We're going to figure this out. Our product's going to age like fine wine. They released that first generation Ryzen series, and everybody looked at it and was like, oh, I mean, it's not up to what Intel's doing at the time, but like I can see where this is going. And this is light years better than what they've been doing with the whole bulldozer sort of shithole kind of everything after the AMD 64 and Phenom years. Mm-hmm. Like a 10-year period where it's just like, oh, this is garbage. You know, everything that they sold was stuff that was like commodity, sort of cheap ass market entry level stuff, things that OEMs were providing, just crap. And they've iterated each generation that Zen's been out, got better and better and better. And because they were so shit for so long, Intel stagnated. They didn't have real competition, so they didn't need to innovate themselves. It affected sort of their business decisions. It also affected like development of future technologies, sort of process development they got stuck on. I don't know how much you know about like how processors are manufactured at this point, but they got stuck on like a 14 nanometer sort of production thing forever. It was just like, you know, 14 nanometer plus. While I think AMD, who was still like, they ditched their own internal foundry, sold it off, split it off, became global foundries, and they started working with whomever was going to be able to do what they needed, which ultimately turned into TSMC. And they were doing like 7 nanometer stuff at the time that Intel was still trying to do 14 nanometer refreshes. And Intel has been uncompetitive since then.
That's a pretty big jump. It's funny because I mean, you made fun of me for buying the prepackaged thing, and I bought Intel specifically for the reliability of Intel. And then immediately it's like, well, this is not upgradable now because there is literally nothing I can put in here that's better than what I've got.
Yeah, and at the time, I mean, it wasn't a bad decision to make. You know, that's a common Intel thing where like you might get 2 generations if you're lucky on a particular platform, so you don't have platform upgrade paths much. That's one of the good things that AMD did with their socket AM4 stuff is like, you know, they're still shipping AM4 products. AM4 hasn't been their leading edge sort of platform for 3 years now, 2 years since AM5 stuff came out, maybe a little bit more. And they're still shipping Zen 4 parts that are great, you know, and they're calling it kind of like their value stuff and not like shipping old models. They're actually making new products, small batches, like the demand for it isn't super high. The problem with Intel right now is that they're sort of in that situation AMD was in, but they're not willing to take the long view. They stagnated. Oh, no. They looked like they were going to do it. They brought in a CEO, Pat Gelsinger, who was like an engineering first kind of guy. And his philosophy was, okay, well, we need to spend our way out of this. So it is going to be painful financially for a little while, but here's the plan. And when you invest like in that technology, there's no instant payoffs, right? Like you starting to plan today what might see the light of production 5 years from now or 4 years from now. Mm-hmm. So it's like, here's the plan. Here's what we need to do to dig ourselves out of this and innovate. We're going to invest in foundries and have other people pay us to make their products. That will be a big chunk of the business. But we're going to focus on engineering and sort of put ourselves back on top. You could argue whether the plans were ever going to get them there or not. But Intel did the typical sort of big corporate thing, which is, well, it has been 2.5 years of a 5-year plan, and we're losing money, just like you said, and we don't want to lose money. So you're fired. Bring in a new guy who's, responsible to basically everything is, okay, well, let's just lay people off.
Yes, we will do austerity until we start making high profits again. Well, yeah, but there's nobody to do the work to make the product.
The beatings will continue until morale approves. Like, it's just...
Yeah.
And it's weird because, like, Intel, for me, where they were sort of the great hope was actually in the GPU business.
Mm-hmm.
They've put out 2 generations of ARC graphics. The first one was rough, but we knew it was going to be rough. They said it was going to be rough. The second generation that's come out was decent. They're probably not making money on it to be cost competitive based on sort of, like, you look at the die size and efficiency of that stuff, and it's like, oh, okay. The margins probably don't exist for this card, but for what the consumer is paying for it, this is compelling. It took them a while to figure out driver and software stuff because they didn't have, aside from their integrated graphics shit, 20 years worth of sort of built up experience and support for all of the weird shit that you have to do for, tuning for like legacy games and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, if anybody was looking for mid-range or even sort of entry-level graphics cards right now, I would probably recommend Intel Arc BattleMage stuff if I was confident that they're going to be around to support it with driver updates a year from now. And I really don't know what's going to happen with them. Looking bleak.
Wow.
But that is a situation where, like, I've always been a bit of an AMD fan, but I look at it and it's like I'm typically an AMD fan when they're the scrappy underdog. And then as they're on top, and this is really only the third time that I think that, they've never been on top in terms of pure market share.
Right.
But if you look at sort of you snapshot this year's purchases, right? Like, look at sales for this year, ignoring that there's 15 years worth of old Intel stock that people are still using that represent a lot of what you're going to see on like Steam surveys.
Mm-hmm.
The sales numbers are just like 85, 90% in consumer, 99% in high-end desktop. So what would be the Threadripper stuff. And even what used to be Intel's bastion, like enterprise server stuff, I think AMD's up over 55 or 60% market share in that.
That's huge.
Yeah, their Epic stuff is, well, it's just literally Intel has nothing that competes. And their new sort of generation on the consumer side is actually sort of performance-wise a step back from their previous generation with significant gains in efficiency.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, like they basically said, well, let's throw more voltage at this for a while, right? Like they're certainly 9th and 10th gen, which is where you kind of are, was sort of their high point in the previous architecture. 11th gen, they threw a lot more sort of voltage and sort of wattage at it to get gains. 12th gen was sort of a revolution. That's when they went with the sort of asymmetrical performance cores, efficiency cores. And that really never developed. 12th gen, 13th gen, 14th gen were all basically the same. And then their new Core 285s or whatever the fuck they are performance-wise a step back for gamers especially.
Yeah, gamers have always been kind of in a weird place, right? Let me look. CPU. Mine is a Comet Lake. I don't know which generation that is.
Comet Lake? I think that's 10th, maybe?
Yeah, it might be. It's
like a 10700K, I think you got.
Yeah, 10700KF. It's the generation before they started having the Intel chip is eating itself and falling apart while it runs.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I don't know. I've prided myself on always going with the value purchase historically when it comes to almost anything computer related because, like you, I've never had money. We both worked for basically minimum wage at a call center for a while. Like it's
for a
back
long
when
time.
we were spending money on computer hardware fairly regularly. So I was always saving up and trying to buy the sort of good bang for your buck that was like not the top end, maybe not even the one right under it, but like the one under that where it's like, oh yeah, this is a sweet spot.
Yeah, it was very much the Tom's Hardware. What is the best value for money?
Yeah.
Right. And if you have to save up to get that one, then you save up to get that one. Don't do that anymore. Because I mean, now I just bought a box and went, will it run the game I want to play? Cool. I'll just keep doing that until they take away support for Windows 10, which is any minute now.
But you definitely see that tribalism in that space.
Oh yeah, you see it in like PC versus console, which is like the lines there are starting to blur a lot, especially with Steam and various services like that, where you can play whatever you want from wherever you want from whatever platform. And I think that especially the PC versus console sort of tribalism was always kind of silly because you don't see a lot. Well, you do now, but especially back when I was paying attention to it, it was never the same games. The games that you see on console were always like FIFA, a new version of that. There was always a new NBA. There was always a new, Tiger Woods until they stopped doing that. And it's the same game over and over again. But a lot of the games that I played on PC were just not available on console. You can't play. Well, EverQuest came out with something for console and it was fairly popular, but they didn't make enough money, so they killed it.
Yeah, that's changed a little bit now. I mean, there's just, we're in this weird space where there's just so many games, like too many games.
Too many.
But at the same time, you look at what we would have called games before, like the big stuff, right? Like, there was always a bit of an indie scene, but not much. Like if you sort of filter out the indie and AA developers now and look at the games that sort of fit the same position as the games everybody played before, those are all pretty much all cross-platform now. They might have exclusivity windows here or there. This will come out on PlayStation first, and then they'll release it on PC. You still have some exclusives that don't make it across the sort of Sony to Xbox or Xbox to Sony. But even that's like the past year and a half, 2 years sort of starting to go away.
Well, it makes sense because everybody's looking to make more money. And how do you make more money? You make more money by having more customers. And the console was never the profit center. So the more people that you can sell games to, the more money you make. So stop limiting who you can sell games to.
Probably an oversimplification. I know, especially in Sony, like with the PlayStations, they had, with the exception of Nintendo's always different, so I don't really lump them in with the sort of Xbox, PlayStation kind of console wars type thing. But Sony was the one that had the only exclusives that people ever really gave a shit about.
Yeah.
And the argument that they would have is by restricting that experience to Sony, to PlayStation, people are going to buy PlayStations and lock in. Yeah. And then once they're locked in, you make the money, right? If you don't get people to lock in, like I'm sure there's a formula, right? Where it's like, okay.
Oh, yes, of course. Somebody somewhere has a spreadsheet and is full of complicated formulas of buy-in versus advertising versus, executive bonuses versus whatever. I just want to play games, man. Life is way too complicated when you start thinking about it.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know if there's anywhere else to go with this. Tribalism sucks. It exists everywhere. It is human nature. I think we'd all be better off if we can sort of objectively recognize those tendencies in ourselves and check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Give people the benefit of the doubt. When someone loves something, go ahead and let them love it. But don't love something to the point where you don't acknowledge the existence of other things. I don't know if there is a message to be shared. I guess it's something like that. Yada,
yada, yada. Bread and circuses.
Well, so I wrote that down because I was thinking about where do we get all of these ideas, especially about, because a lot of the stuff we're talking about is products, right? It's this brand versus that brand. And the only place you get that is by people advertising at you. And there's a lot of things, and we talked about this a little bit last week, that are advertised that you just don't need. And some of that is sort of put out there it comes into our desires as a part of, I need to escape from whatever the hell this is, this life thing, right? My life sucks, so I'm going to go buy something shiny and then I'll feel better for a minute. So there's a lot of buy something, you'll feel better, right? Or you are not enough. You need to buy something to make yourself enough. And if you sort of step back and think, like, what do I really need? Like, there's so many things. Like, I have so much stuff in my house that I've accrued over, the 50 years of my life, where I think, why do I have this? Like, what is the purpose of this? And at the time, it was something I wanted or something I thought I needed. But I mean, I have like a set of fondue pots for 17 people. When the hell am I ever going to invite 17 people over for fondue? I don't want to set up fondue for 17 people. It'll take a week. I don't want to clean up after 17 people have had fondue. It will take I'll move literally before I clean up after fondue for 17 people. But I have the pots, so why? I don't know, because at one time I thought, hey, fondue is fun. Let's fondue. You don't need fondue pots. Make yourself a grilled cheese sandwich and dip it in some ketchup. It's more or less the same.
I've never really done the cheese fondue stuff much. We used to do like a steak fondue kind of thing, which was basically just deep frying steak in oil, right? And then dipping it in sauces.
Mm-hmm.
And that was tasty. I haven't done that in 25 years, but
it's been a while for me too. We did it once when we were living in the trailer park, and we had like literally, it was on a Sunday that we were playing D&D. We had a group coming over. We did fondue. Cindy started prepping stuff on Tuesday, and it was the following Friday before we were finished cleaning up. And I think it was like, and this was, when did we live in the trailer park? God, that was 20 years ago, nearly. Like, I think it cost like $120 or something for like the oil and the little things that you got to light on fire under them and the cheese. We did oil and cheese and chocolate. Right? Like, yeah, it's nice and it's fun, but if you're going to do fondue, go do it at a restaurant. Pay someone else to do the dishes.
Yeah. I think for me, like the oil fondues, like what ruined that for me was probably YouTube. For any other reason than seeing the sort of like deep fried turkey accidents.
Oh, yeah. They're fantastic.
It's like, oh, well, let's just do a smaller version of that in the middle of my dining room table. What could possibly go wrong?
As long as most of those accidents are because they didn't thaw the turkey, they didn't dry the turkey, or they dumped it in a stupid way.
Yeah, but even just, accidentally, like, oh, I hit that table a little bit hard. And, those fondue kits, like, they're just the rickety little metal stands that those bloody things sit down that, like, wobble precariously when you look at it funny. And it's like, oh, well, there's, 380-degree oil.
And an open flame.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, there's no way that this could go bad. Open flame and hot oil.
I'm literally deep frying meat in it. I'm meat.
You are a meat popsicle.
I am a meat popsicle. It is a tangent-filled episode. Do you want to focus in here, drill down, and briefly talk about some video games?
No, but let's talk about video games.
I used to be an adventurer like you.
Stay a while and listen.
You've got the face that suggests you're going to talk about something else.
No, I do actually. When I just was trying to think about how to sort of intro this, because I forget the guy's name from Let's Game It Out.
Josh.
He's highly entertaining. I watch him play games that I have no interest in playing and no knowledge about, just because his commentary is so clever. But I was watching some Satisfactory stuff, which is just fantastic. Just like the fact that you can do the stuff that he does is great. And I watched him play a game called The Long Dark, which is like a survival horror game. It's free to play, I think, right now on Steam because it's in like open beta type thing, pre-release stuff. And it looked like so atmospheric and fun, right? Like he's running around in the Russian winter naked. And just the way he talks about it is hilarious. But the thought popped into my head, like this, ostensibly we started this as I kind of, let's talk about video games kind of a podcast. And I don't know about you, but I'm playing one game at the moment. It might be interesting to, I don't know exactly how this would work or if it even makes sense, but just like, here's what happened on Game It Out. Let's just pick the game that he released a video of this week and go play it and then talk about it. It's a no, I get that, but I like the idea.
I think the problem is that, like, so Let's Game It Out is still very, very funny, but it's become formulaic. And what you see on screen is no longer even close to an accurate representation of the fun that's available to be had while playing a game. Josh has always made his own fun and made it really funny doing it. But you can watch his videos now and just see how manufactured a lot of the fun that he has in it, right? Like he'll do those little cutaways where it's like 7 hours later and you're like, bullshit, dude. Like that was 24 hours that you probably paid some intern to get you to the point where that you could then capture some video and record some quippy one-liners and move on. Like there's just the amount of, like, it's his job. It's his job. He treats it like his job. He puts job amounts of time into it, probably more. And I mean, he's been rewarded for it. Like the channel it blew up, especially like right after he kind of became a solo act. I don't know if you've watched any of his old stuff, but like there used to be two of them that were doing it. And I don't think it was like a confrontational thing. I think it was just sort of an amicable. The other guy was like, okay, well, this was a hobby for me. And I'm maybe not going to stay doing this forever. And Josh was like, okay, well, I'll keep it going. And then he found that formula, the Let's Game It Out formula. And it's like, okay, well, this is what we're doing. And we're just going to sort of add production value to this. It's repetitive now. The jokes, some of it is the sort of continuity of the same jokes that kind of come out. But some of it is like, okay, no, this is literally exactly the same stuff, video after video after video, to the point where you probably have like audio cuts that you can just sort of assemble.
There's some of that, yeah. There's a certain sameness to it, and there's a weird thing that happens when you start watching somebody on YouTube where you watch one and you're like, I like this, I'd like more of the same, and you watch another one and you're like, yeah, this is more of the same, I like it. Then you watch a third one and think, no, this is literally the same. And it's fine if you watch one sort of every week. Yeah. It's still really enjoyable. Yep. It's just not bingeable.
No, and I would say with the Let's Game It Out stuff, like you do catch all of that. It still pretty much keeps its bingeable sort of, because it's just so good. But what you can see in it is like, it's a production now. And the only reason I brought any of that up, not to sort of criticize the channel at all, I still watch every video he puts out within an hour of him releasing it. But I think it's harder now to look at the games that he plays and say, I should play that. I might find that fun.
When I say, well, I was not being serious about like, let's play all the games.
Yeah.
The idea of let's pick something and then this is the person who dictates what we do. Then, sort of we become a let's react channel.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. I thought it was a funny idea. But The Long Dark actually did really appeal to me just because it has some things in common with Satisfactory.
Yep.
Where, again, I haven't looked at it really hard, but watching it, you can just do stuff, right? Like the thing where he started catching fish just to see how many fish are in this lake. He's got something like 50,000 fish laid out on the ice.
Yeah, there's another video game that basically does that same bit in. That's a game where you have to sort of mine and extract resources and gems and run them back to town. You've probably seen the videos. But that's an example of one game in the stuff that he's done where it's like, I should probably play that one of these days when I'm not playing Satisfactory, because I might like that one.
Yeah, it looks like fun. And it's one. Here's the thing: is that I don't actually see video games like. I mean, I play Satisfactory because you bought it for me.
Yeah.
And I don't really see new video games much anymore, so it's a good way to be sort of exposed to it without, hearing here's the hype train for this new video game that you have to buy. It's just here's somebody playing the game in an entertaining enough way that I'm going to get enough of the content, enough of the gist of how the game works to figure out. Because I watched him play a couple of things where it was entertaining to watch him play. I have no interest in the game itself.
Yeah.
But this was one where it's entertaining. It was fun. It was like his shtick really fit the gameplay well. And the gameplay looked like I would enjoy it. So I thought I would bring it up. So after Satisfactory, maybe we try The Long Dark.
Yeah, I'd be down for that. Hydroneer, I think, was the other game that I was thinking of.
Is that like, it's basically pipes?
Yeah.
Like just large amounts of plumbing?
Yeah. My dog is going nuts. I apologize for that.
Speaking of pets, I have 2 very geriatric cats, and they are going downhill, and it is hurting my heart a bit.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, Fury has been so I have 2 cats, Scratch Fury, Destroyer of Worlds, and Kevin. And for the last little bit, Scratch Fury, we just call him Fury, has been sort of losing weight and getting old and tired. He's got arthritis, and he's losing his balance a little bit because of pain. So he's on like massive amounts of steroids and painkillers and various things. So he's still happy, still enjoying life, just doesn't jump on things anymore, spends a lot of time sleeping. He's mostly skin and bones. He has recently started eating again, which is like, oh, well, that's strange. And Kevin was, like approximately the same age, but Fury is Siamese and Kevin is a ginger. And so typically gingers don't live as long, and Siamese have a much longer lifespan. So it was a little bit surprising. And basically in the last 2 weeks, Kevin has gone from, I am still a young kitten, to I am tired and everything hurts.
Oh.
Yeah. So I try not to think about it, but it's hard, right? Because it's just there. Life.
So segue to Satisfactory, I guess. That feels
I suppose
kind of a dick thing to do, but
well, I mean, like, how do you segue out of that? Like, how do you segue into that? That whole thing's probably going to be cut unless I talk about it a lot, so that you can't. But yeah, Satisfactory. Let's talk about Satisfactory. Do we have a specific like intro music sting for Satisfactory?
No, because I would end up replacing it every 2 months anyway, right? It's not like we record enough. Remember, we were a Baldur's Gate 3 podcast before becoming a Satisfactory podcast, and then briefly a political podcast.
I was thinking it might be fun to just like capture a sample of Ada, just to, I don't know. And you've earned yourself a micro break. Welcome back.
Attention. Your brain's operations are outside typical parameters. Time spent daydreaming will be deducted from your sustenance budget.
So I have finished my railroad that goes entirely around the entire map. I have train stations on all of it. I have 2 trains running around it now. I'll probably end up with about 10 trains, is my thought. Once I'm finished, I have started building it's going to end up being kind of a mega base or a mega factory, just because I'm trying to do, because fuck fused cubic, whatever the hell those things are. Jesus Christ, the chain of things you have to make in order to make those is insane.
Mm-hmm.
But I did find an alternate recipe that allows me to put water into a blender to make scrap aluminum, and you get enough water out of it to generate exactly the right amount of sulfuric acid to feed back into the same process, so I don't have to manage overflow of fluids, which is nice. The unfortunate thing is that it's still super complicated because then you got to do heavy frames, which are 40,000 things and 30 billion screws because they don't have the alternate recipes to do all of those things without screws.
Dude, spend like 4 hours and just go get hard drives, man.
I have 32 of them.
Cash them in.
I have scanned. I have no idea how many, but I've got probably 20% of the. Here's a question: if you already have an alternate recipe and you scan a hard drive, will you get that same alternate recipe again?
No, and that's sort of the nice trick. Like when you have specific recipes that you're looking for, when you turn in a hard drive and it spits back the two results, and then you do the rescan, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you have recipes where you just, I don't care about either one of those, don't claim one of the options, leave it sitting there, because then those two recipes won't come up as you're scanning other hard drives as long as they're there.
But if you do claim one of them,
then the other one will come back into circulation.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. Also, I'm to the point where I almost want to. I did actually do a little bit of save scumming for hard drive recipes, just because there was the heavy oil residue one I wanted in order to do fuel generation.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I thought I had it, and I had the one, but I didn't have the one to just generate heavy oil residue from crude.
Well, there's two that you can use, right? One is the resin, which gives you a little bit of heavy oil residue and a lot of resin. And then there's the heavy oil residue one, which gives you a lot of that and a little bit of resin.
Right, which is the one I was looking for. And I did get that. So I now have a plant that is doing, so I quintupled. I made some turbo fuel as well, just to do drones to go back and forth in a couple of places.
Nice.
Yeah. So I did a bunch of that, but I have just, the funny thing is that the amount of space that I wanted in between train stations means that most of the track that I built is actually train stations. To the point where I would suggest, if you're going to do what I did, which is send raw materials all around these train tracks, is don't build the tracks, build the train stations first, and then build tracks between them.
Yeah. I sort of was doing the same thing at about the same time as you were when we started this dock like a week ago. I've gone around and I've sort of created my entire train loop. I don't have too many stations on it yet. I'm not satisfied with it, funny enough. And it's just one of those things where you want to achieve something, right? And then you realize, this just isn't going to work as well as I thought it would. So then you go back to plan B. I built new sort of like T-style sort of train supports for double rail train supports. And one of the things that I wanted to try and do this particular playthrough was, because I've dabbled in trains in a bunch of playthroughs, I've never hard committed to them. And I thought, well, if I can do trains in such a way that I can kind of stick to the train, elevate them so that I'm not dealing with like clipping rails in the ground, right? So get them way up in the air. I sort of built this nice kind of like 2 levels so that I can run 4 rails, 2 tiers on it. Really nice. And then like I set it up so that like I could have rails that are at like flat, and then 2 different angled rails, hoping that I could eliminate some of the sort of bunny hopping that happens when you're going up and down elevations. And it helped a little bit, but not enough that when I was experimenting with just placing these things directly on train, it looked like ass. So I ended up doing the thing that I usually do, which is spam foundations everywhere, create as much sort of flat floating up in the middle of the air stuff as I can. Use your angled foundations and stuff to do the slopes where you got to do it. And then I put these things on the foundations. My intention is that I will delete all of those foundations and then extend the pillars down to terrain level. But I didn't want to have to sort of do that. Now I'm way up in the air compared to where I sort of wanted to be, which makes bringing everything down to where I might want to put the station a little bit less elegant. You know what? What I have is starting to look pretty good already. Like when I'm, I'll be way up in the air when I'm doing like a hypertube launch across the map, and I'm looking down and I'm like, ooh, that looks really, really slick. And then I get kind of down to where it is, and it's just like, but it's not what I wanted to do.
I approached it entirely differently because I looked at like all of that bunny hopping stuff, and I thought the one thing that I want is I want all of my tracks to be smooth.
Yeah.
So I made blueprints with, because now that we have Auto Connect, with track on a foundation that is set up like an aqueduct.
Yeah.
So my whole thing, and when I had to span anywhere rather than coming down to, it's time to water the trees. When I had to come down to ground level, instead of actually extending the legs down to ground level, I put a bottom layer on it and made it look like a trestle bridge.
Yeah.
But I spent a lot of time doing, like, I made smooth left and right curves in 5-degree increments. I did like the everything, because my train is 16 cars long. And pro tip, if you only do the 1 meter slope, you can fill up 16 cars with an engine on the front and an engine on the back, and it will do it. Which I wasn't sure of when I built the thing. And then I'm like, ooh, I better load up a train and make sure it works. It'll slow down going up the slope, but it works.
That explains your comment about the amount of rail that you've created that's just train station. I don't think I'm going to run long trains. I'm probably going to do a bunch. Like, I'd rather run sort of multiples of like a single engine 4-car setup, I think, and then just work out signaling and stuff so that I can have 40 trains going or 50 trains going without collision issues and whatnot. But
I just didn't want to have to figure out, this is the train that stops at this station. This is the train that stops at this station. I have currently 23 stations around the map, right? And I basically just dumped a station wherever there was a real, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a congregation, a cluster of different resources near where the track was going to be. And I made, there are 12 raw resources that are worth gathering to make regular parts. And then there's 4 mostly empty cars on the back for, I don't know, I need to move compacted coal from over here to over there rather than make it out of coal and sulfur or whatever, right? I put the 3 fluid cars at the front, and then I've got 9 regular freight cars and then 4 cars for miscellaneous. And I only have 1 track. I have 1 track that goes all the way around, and I'm just going to put a bunch of trains on it. What I was thinking is that the train becomes a conveyor belt, like basically a 12 stacked conveyor belt. And you just, if you need more throughput, you just add another train.
yeah.
That was my thinking. I don't know if it's going to work out. If I was going to do it again, what I would do differently is I would make my tracks hover tracks, and I would just put them in the sky and say, this is the level that all of the trains are on. And if I need to use something, I will use an elevator and bring it down.
Yeah, I thought about doing that. And again, that's just, I wanted to try and avoid that because I kind of went down that route the last game where it's like, okay, let me find the route where I don't have to change any elevation.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's just a pain in the ass moving stuff up and down because I wasn't bringing everything to kind of like a single location. And I'm in a weird spot right now. So I opened up tier 9.
Okay.
Did you end up doing that? I know you were sitting at sort of tier 8 forever.
I think I have tier 9 open, but I haven't actually unlocked any of the things in it.
Okay.
The first thing that I want to unlock is the big blueprint printer.
Yeah.
Because I don't have that yet.
I'm not worrying about any of my sort of like final space elevator parts to finish the game at this point. But there's 2 things that you can get as you work through that tier. The big game changer is the tier 6 belts so that you can do like 1,200 parts per minute, which works out well for your tier 3 miners. When you overclock them, a pure node gives you 1,200. So I'm at that sort of stage where I'm not unlocking that yet. I need to work on some stuff like all of the new time crystals and the trigons and all of that stuff. I need to work through that stuff. So what I want to do is I'm in the middle of building a new aluminum factory so that I can keep up with what I need to sort of get through all of that stuff. And then basically blow up almost everything in the game and start deploying the overclocked tier 3 miners and build my real factories.
I have run out of fused. What are they called? The orange cubes.
The fused modular frames, the ones that
Yeah.
require the aluminum and nitrogen. And
Yes, I ran out of them, so I can't build tier 3 miners at the moment. I have some because I do have tier 3 miners, which I've replaced a bunch of stuff with, and I went to place a bunch, and I'm like, oh, I don't have those. Right? Oh yeah, that's the one I was feeding the blender manually to make them. So
yeah, that's basically sort of how I got to where I am now. Like I got nitrogen over here. I'm going to make my heavy frames wherever it's convenient to make them. I'll take them over there, load up like 3 bins full of them. And then as I get my aluminum ramped up, I'll just sort of like, as much as my inventory can hold at a time, remember to every hour or so, fill up with the casings and then shoot them over there. And it was just this sort of long, and you probably went through it too, maybe 7 hours of gameplay where I was trying to advance through the space elevator parts. And while they were sort of being manufactured, I was literally, okay, I'm going to take heat sinks over here for my little cooling things. I'm going to take frames as I can get them over here. None of my aluminum is near a copper node right now. So I'm literally taking my aluminum ingots and bringing them a bunch of over here where I have copper so that I can do the alclad stuff, so that I can feed that into my stack of assemblers that are making my, so semi-automated, like,
yes,
most of my base stuff is fully automated. Like when I say base, I don't mean like at my base. I mean like my initial modular frames and motors and rotors and all of that stuff. Like I got it out the yin yang, I got overflow going into awesome sinks. So, like I've got as much of that kind of shit as I ever need, but there's just the turbo motors and the
complicated
modular
stuff.
engines and the stuff like that, where I only really need X number of it, and then I can forget that they exist for a little while.
Yeah.
Until I rebuild everything. And I'm kind of at that point now where I just need to do a few more things. I need to start my production of diamonds and converting them to time crystals. I need to start my production of all the SAM stuff to make the fixonium and trigons and stuff like that, so that I have those that I can turn into unlock my 1200 belts, my tier 6 belts. And then once I have that, it's literally like, okay, we'll reset everything without resetting it, delete everything almost, and let's build it right, because I won't need to blow it up again after this. So I can take my time and I can do it right.
Yeah. I'm at the point where I want to automate the last few major things that go into stuff, like the fused modular frame, so that I can build tier 3 miners and stuff like that, just so that I can dump them into a dimensional depot, so they're just always available, and then I can just go construct things.
Having the train network will help you do that without having to be super strategic about where your aluminum production is happening relative to nitrogen and stuff like that, if you're going to shuffle it around.
Yeah, that was the idea, was basically like wherever I want to build this, I can just, maybe it won't be the most efficient way to get the materials.
No, it won't be, but it's efficient enough.
Yeah, you can get the materials to where you need to go, and it can replace 3 or 4 of them an hour and call it good.
So after, I don't know, whatever 500 hours that you've got in this playthrough.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Hypothetically speaking, when you start your next playthrough, what sort of things will you do differently?
I think the very first thing is going to be not bother trying to bring things centrally. Because every playthrough so far, because this is the first one I've really gotten into dimensional depots as a way to manage my inventory.
Yeah.
So up until now, I have been, okay, I got to build belts to bring it to here. And then I want to have one sort of central place where I have all of these containers that are full of stuff. So if I need to build something, I can go to that container and get the stuff. I think what I would do differently is it would be, here is a copper node, right? This is the copper node where I'm going to mine copper, make ingots, I'm pretty sure that if I do anything with trains, I will be sending things places with ingots or the sort of tier 1 and 2 materials. Like I would send like copper sheets and what's the other thing you made? Wire and cable rather than copper ore. But I would do like, this is the copper node where I'm going to build wire, and there will be a factory that is, the miner on the base level, smelter on the next level, and then the constructors that do wire on the next level. On the top of it will be a dimensional depot. That's it. And if I need more, I will build another one and put a dimensional depot on top of it.
Yeah. I think, first of all, as much as I'm loving the game and love the game, I don't think I'm going to immediately start a playthrough for a while. I'm going to give it a year or so. I think they're working on an expansion, so whenever that drops, probably be the time that I sort of get back into it. One of the things that I've thought about doing, like, it's always sort of been that sort of like everything happens centrally, move resources in, or you build a whole bunch of satellite factories and then you move those tier 1, tier 2 kind of goods around. One of the things that I've thought about trying, and I might even try it this playthrough as I start tearing things down, is a hybrid approach where I take raw resources and train them out to the water. Have a few strategic places, like each zone that has water kind of thing, and build massive, I shouldn't call them smelteries because I wouldn't be using smelters. This is where I would start using a lot of the pure recipes or steamed recipes that would require a lot of water intake, but you get so much more production sort of per unit of raw ore coming out, and then move that to the satellite stations, and then move your sort of higher level components kind of back centrally again. That will involve a lot of trains because you're moving so much raw goods, but I think aesthetically it might kind of be pleasing because you don't have a lot of, I don't see myself having a lot of these like little warts that kind of sprout up in all the different biomes where it's like, this is where I'm making quartz shit, here's my circuit board production over here, right? Like here's, it's smelters. You establish these sort of networks, miners establish these networks to train stations, move those around to sort of key strategic locations, literally off the map in the water, and amp up your production as efficiently as you can that way, and then start shipping stuff to all your satellite stations. And that way your factories, the warts that you're sort of building up on the land, are less dictated by the combinations of resources that are available and more dictated by just where you have space that's close to your train lines where you can kind of make it aesthetically pleasing.
The aesthetics are something that if I was going to start again, I think I would focus more on that. Like if I was going to start again, I would honestly prefer not to do the progression. Like I would go looking for a mod or a save game where it's, here is a map that has not been touched, but everything's unlocked.
I think it just has a creative mode.
Does it?
I think so.
Well, if it does, then that's what I would do. Is it would be I just want to build stuff, right? I don't want to play the game. I want to just sandbox it.
Yeah.
Just try and make things pretty.
Yeah.
I started color coding my pipes, specifically in the one factory, just because I've got, going through the same place, I've got sulfuric acid, I've got water, I've got oil, I've got nitrogen. And I thought, you know what? It'd just be nice to be able to look at something and go, where does this one go? Oh yeah, it's that one.
Have you touched nuclear yet?
I have built a nuclear power plant. I looked at what it required and went, shit, I need to build a train network so that I can actually get the stuff that I need to this nuclear power plant. So now that I've done that, I need to build the production line that makes the fused modular frame so that I have those. And then I can actually go and do the nuclear stuff because the train line runs right past where I need to do that. I didn't want to move nuclear fuel around.
Yeah.
So I want to do all of that sort of on site where the node is. And I need to bring like sulfuric acid and nitric acid or whatever the heck it is and all of that stuff to that site. So,
yeah. I thought about like moving the uranium around by drones and let that be kind of what the drones do. They literally just take your half dozen uranium nodes and just pull the raw uranium ore and fly it to, because, having fuel for the drones is easy at that point when it's your nuclear power plant. I wanted to try and figure out a system, and I kind of got bogged down. I see that you're using Satisfactory Modeler. Incidentally, you kind of linked that.
I did, yes. It's handy. It's not quite right for a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, but it's nice to see the connections about what buildings do I need.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it's better at some things than like the Satisfactory calculator is, the web thing that they've got going on.
It's definitely easier to visualize.
Easier to visualize. I don't know. Maybe I haven't spent enough time with it, but I found a little bit more awkward in like selectively dealing with specific alternate recipes and stuff like that. So they both kind of have their strengths. But anyway, I've thought about, okay, how can I look at, rather than a sort of like, here's where I'm producing my uranium fuel rods, here's where, they're getting moved to all of these generators, blah, 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 blah. I started trying to think about, okay, what does a modular, scalable nuclear thing look like? I obviously can't do it in one blueprint. It's probably 12 or 14 blueprints that all sort of work to feed one reactor, right? What would that look like? Even if I'm underclocking a lot of it just to sort of get the numbers and things right, where I can just feed X amount of stuff into it. What does that look like? And I spent 3 or 4 hours just kind of monkeying around with it. Just like,
it's a job.
Yeah. And again, can I get to where I want to be, where I'm tearing everything down and then do nuclear as part of that, rather than try and ad hoc some nuclear in early? Because I don't want to do nuclear until I can at least get through and I have everything to do the byproduct production into plutonium fuel rods that I can then sink, right? If I can't get rid of the waste, I don't want to do it. It doesn't matter. Like you can move it to the outside of the map and it almost doesn't matter. But the challenge is trying to do it right.
Yeah, you've got to do something with the waste. And that's sort of the thing that's holding me back at this point as well, is that I don't want to have a whole bunch of waste that I'm thinking, what do I do with this? Just like in real life, nuclear power is great. What do you do with the waste? Well, that's difficult.
Yeah. What you do is ramp up the automation for your filter production.
So far, I've actually only done one. Like I went to my workbench and I went, make me filters. I made 100 or so, and I still haven't gone through them.
Yeah.
So that's nice. I do find that the treatment that the game gives to uranium ore and just sort of nuclear stuff is like, it gives you enough of a feeling of danger that it feels dangerous, but not enough that it feels, oh no, I can't deal with this. Right. It doesn't overcomplicate it. And I like that.
Yep. Nothing realistic about it, but also everything is difficult and complex enough where there's a clear delineation. This is an optional part of the game that you don't need to do to play the game, to beat the game, to do whatever your victory condition is. Nuclear doesn't have to be part of that. If you want the challenge, here it is. And boy, is it a challenge.
It is a challenge.
Spider web of materials.
Oh, yeah.
It's insane, which is good. Like, it's a good insane. And I want to do it. I want to get through it. That was sort of my main objective for this playthrough was we're going to do nuclear right.
It's a challenging puzzle, and I enjoy that a whole bunch. I don't know if I told you, the first time that I encountered radioactive materials, I died. And I got back there. I didn't realize that I could do the filter thing in order to survive it. I'm like, I need to get my death crate because there's Mercer spheres in there, and there's only 7 of them on the map, right? This is early in my playthrough because there's like 278 of them or something.
Yeah,
there's lots. So I went back and I'm like, okay, well, if I collect, because it wasn't like a uranium node, it was just scattered chunks.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, if I mine it, then I can move it away, right? So I went,
Why am
dink,
I
dink,
dying
dink.
so much faster?
Well, it was literally dink, dink, dink. I'm dead. New death crate.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, well, it's gone now. I should be fine. You walk up, you pick up your crate, and all of that goes into your inventory, and you die again.
You don't even have to pick up your crate. You just get close to your crate, and you're dead because the crate is radioactive. Which is what I mean by when I say it's realistic enough to be a threat, to be a danger without being, because in real life, if you take on that kind of dose, you just die and you're done forever. Obviously, there's no respawns in real life either. It's a video game and it needs to have some.
That's one of the things that I'm actually proud of in this playthrough, incidentally.
No deaths?
No deaths so far. No save scumming, no anything. I can't remember what the number is. But like you look inside the door of your...
Oh, number of days since?
Yeah. And I think I'm at like 160 or, whatever it is. However many in-game days my playthrough time sort of represents. So
I should have a look. It's been a while since I died as well.
Yeah.
I've come close. I've been down to a sliver of health as I've been floating through on my hover pack, building train stations and stuff. And I delete a track and suddenly there's no power. And it's like, oh no, I'm falling. Oh no, I'm
That's
falling.
one of the good things. You can actually fall and
slowly. Yes.
Well, no, like they rejigged it, I think just before 1.0, so that falls just don't kill you. They take you down to that sliver where if you take any extra damage, you die. That initial fall from most practical heights won't kill you.
Oh, I've definitely died by falling.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I think I've died once or twice. There was a long period at the beginning of this playthrough where I didn't die because I turned off the aggression of all of the alien creatures.
Yeah.
Because I was just over it. I don't play the game to play combat. If I'm going to do that, I'll go play a combat game. If it floats your boat, great. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying I didn't enjoy it. So, especially the spiders, like you get into the dark and they're running around so fast.
Then all of a sudden they start jumping at you and it's just like, holy shit.
Yeah. Especially the big ones, like the alpha spider things. Wow.
Have you ever turned on the arachnophobia mode for the game?
No, but I have seen it on Josh's channel and it is hilarious. Just kittens. And it's like, well, now I can't kill them. I do enjoy in 1.1 they've given Ada some more lines when you kill the space whales. I liked you better before you did that. And I don't go out of my way to kill them, but sometimes they get stuck on a conveyor belt and you can't do anything except kill them and then come back after their corpse decomposes. And they take a lot of dynamite to kill them.
I've never tried. I've never had to.
No, it takes 10 or 12 of the scatter bombs, the cluster bombs to do it. It's one of the reasons I want to do nuclear is because I want to be able to drop nuclear Nobelisk because it makes a big kaboom.
It does. Well,
books.
You have an interesting note in our book report section, so I want to get into that.
A book?
That's right. When I was your age, television was called books. And this is a special book.
I have a 451 degree Fahrenheit hot take. I think I started rereading Robert Heinlein's books. I enjoyed them. I read most of them when I was in high school. And his juveniles are pretty juvenile, so I'm skipping those. But I read the Moon is a Harsh Mistress, which is an interesting political thing. And I'm currently reading the next one, which I forget the title of. But one of the things that struck me now that I'm a little bit older, a little more sophisticated and a little more mature, is that the dialogue that his characters have has striking similarities to Piers Anthony's conversations. Not so much in that they are the same, because they're not. They're very different. Heinlein's conversations tend to be much more grown up.
I'm probably going to put my foot in my mouth here. Which Anthony? And I only say this because I read Anthony way, way back in the day, and what I noticed was there was a striking difference between like the incarnations of immortality stuff and the Xanth stuff to the point where it's like, oh, is this actually a different author?
It's very different. I'm talking more along the lines of the Xanth stuff.
Okay.
There's some of it in the incarnations of immortality, but the thing that struck me in the commonality between them, the way that it struck me is it's almost like reading, you know, those posts from, I think it was 4chan, where there's a picture of Pepe, and it's like, you know, somebody described something and then everybody clapped. Right. It has that kind of tone where you can very much tell that there is a clear bias about which character is the viewpoint for the author.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The thing about Piers Xanth, because I enjoyed the Xanth books, I like puns, so I enjoyed them a whole bunch. But the conversations that the characters have with each other are starkly unrealistic.
Yeah.
Right. There is no flow. It is weird. It is awkward. It is very much like listening to two autistic people talk at each other almost in a way that doesn't sound human. And the early stuff, I think like Heinlein gets better at it as he goes along, because I'm still in the late 40s, early 50s of his writing period. Right. So this is like almost 75 years old now. And it's very much like you can see the development that he's going through as an author, but the conversations that his characters are having are very stilted. There's a lot of Mary Sue stuff going on where like they come across some sort of a problem or a challenge, and suddenly one character or the other has this amazing ability to do the thing that is necessary to solve the problem. And they normally talk about it. One of the things that really struck me as interesting is that there is a clear origin or very least antecedent to the kind of wisecracking repartee that is typical of Joss Whedon's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where it's like quip, 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 joke, joke, quip, right? And throwaway comment about something. And it's awkward and it's weird, but it's kind of endearing at the same time. Anyway, the conversation the characters have in the book is starkly awkward.
I want to circle back because you said you had a very, very hot take.
Kind of, yeah. That was mostly just a bad joke.
Yeah. It was definitely a bad joke. But what you wrote in the show doc notes specifically is, quote, books are overrated.
Oh, yeah.
So tie that together for me.
Oh, I can't, because the reason I wrote that books are overrated is because I didn't have anything to say about books, and I left it in there because I needed to put something under there to say we're not actually talking about books. This was last week's note that I just left in there. It came from a place of me starting to read some things and just really losing interest fast. Because it's me going back to books that I enjoyed as a teenager and now in my 50s and not enjoying them as much as I did. Yeah. As one would expect. Like these are books that are written for, first of all, an older time.
Yeah.
Right. In the 1950s, this would have been new and cutting edge kind of way of telling a story. Now it feels like my grandfather's writings, because it was written by someone who was a contemporary of my grandfather. So, yeah.
So read some new stuff or newer stuff, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. Some of the problem is the same as it ever was, is that the stuff that has survived from older times is just the very best of the things that were available in those times. And the stuff that is available now is all of the stuff. And you have to wade through the pulp to get to the good stuff.
Yeah. I actually saw an interesting sort of conversation going on Blue Sky the past couple of weeks. One of the guys I follow on there is an author that I've recommended his stuff before, yet I haven't actually had found room to read it. Mm-hmm. I think Tanya's listened to some of the audiobooks or one of them. John Scalzi. Sort of a most popular series, probably the Old Man's War series, kind of a military flavored science fiction. He's a great follow on. Well, he was a great follow on Twitter. He's a great follow on Blue Sky. But he was sort of not hot taking anything, but just sort of like there was some self deprecation in the conversation that was happening. But this idea that like some of the things that we consider classics now were never all that great.
No.
The conversation kind of started with sort of the gatekeeping mentality some people have about sci-fi, right? Like anybody that reads sci-fi needs to start with Isaac Asimov and blah, 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 blah.
No.
And he kind of came in and said, you know what? I mean, first of all, fuck off. But second of all, a lot of the stuff that we consider classics either doesn't hold up, was never that good. Like it's not a classic because it was the best of its time. It was the pop music of its time.
Yeah.
And somebody says, well, what do you think about like Tolkien and stuff like that? Getting into the fantasy stuff. And he says, honestly, even like back in the day, I found Tolkien a slog, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody looking to get into fantasy now.
No, it definitely is not the first thing because it reads a lot like a history book. I enjoy it.
You almost have to read it like academic reading now. Like you don't read it to enjoy Lord of the Rings. You read it to understand the fantasy genre and how we got to where we are today.
I do. The Hobbit is worth reading as an entertaining book.
Yeah.
Because it was written in a different style. Lord of the Rings is worth reading, but you have to sort of approach it like a historical book, like you would read Jane Austen, for example.
Yeah.
I would say that most of Asimov's work you can skip getting into science fiction. I would, however, still recommend the Foundation trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that holds up. A lot of his other fiction doesn't really.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's worth reading for the historical perspective, and it's still reasonably good, but it's not the kind of thing I would say you have to read this.
Yeah.
There are probably 2 or 3 books in Heinlein's bibliography, his works that I would recommend. Stranger in a Strange Land is worth reading. There's one other. The one I'm reading right now is The Cat Who Walked Through Walls, and it's very strange. I don't think that I would recommend it. Like I'm still going to read through it because I set out on this path. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
But I think that almost like if you look at, I agree, I guess is the TLDR of the whole thing is that, yeah, lots of the classical stuff it doesn't hold up. It's not worth lionizing. It's probably worth looking at historically, read something reasonably new and reasonably modern, and then maybe go back and read one of the older ones.
Yeah.
But you have to pick and choose through the works of the people who have written classics and just like do their greatest hits.
Yeah. It doesn't just apply to books. We kind of develop these sort of gatekeepy kind of reverence for the things we liked when we were young. It's like, you're not a video gamer unless you've played video game X, right?
No true Scotsman.
You've never read real sci-fi until you've read this. It's just like, off.
Yeah.
As you're finding in your experience now, you going back and rereading the stuff that you had a certain amount of reverence for back then, you're finding out
it's not that great.
It's either not that great or it's just like, oh, my perspective has changed and my love for this is impacted by my perspective being different.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there's still some really good ideas to sort out from some of the older science fiction. You have to wade through a whole lot of generational misogyny and racism to get there, though.
Yeah.
Right? Like even the enlightened minds of the time would be considered very racist now. So like strap in and be prepared to either ignore it or look past it.
Yeah.
Do not read Robert E. Howard. No matter what you do, skip it. Seriously, go watch the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie and say, yep, that's Conan. Don't read the books. Just don't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, not a good idea. Anyway, I meant to mention it sort of absent this conversation. You should check out John Scalzi's Old Man Wars stuff. I think it would be quasi up your alley, saying this as a person who's not actually read the full series.
Okay. Well, I actually went and did a Google search, so I will look into it.
It's on my list of stuff to jump into next once I finish the Expanse stuff, which again, I've been doing 0 reading since we moved.
Well, books are overrated.
It's true. Wise man once said, books are overrated. Do you want to get into some table talk stuff quickly? How much time do you have left? Are you on a schedule? Do you have a curfew? Do you turn into a pumpkin?
I mean, I'm old, so I eventually will fall asleep. We should probably take an intermission so I can pour myself another beer if we're going to do table talk.
Your ingenuity towards preservation of fix-it property has been noted. You earned a micro break. And welcome back. I hope you feel refreshed. Fix-It's predictions indicate pioneers should generally reach this point faster with above-average results, but we should all adjust our expectations according to the situation.
So, Rich, if you're listening, I'm running out of trogs.
Are you opening it with a screwdriver?
I am opening it with a screwdriver. I am a redneck of the first order.
You are indeed. So I really enjoyed our conversation last episode before, about being a better dungeon master. And I think that's the kind of stuff I kind of want to try and keep going in this segment on our show as we record. Doesn't need to be an every episode thing, but GM development, running games, skills, stuff like that. So I have a couple things that I wanted to float by you this week.
Shoot.
I'm jumping back into a game. I actually have a session 0 Tuesday evening. It's with most of my old party, my regular Tuesday night party. Originally, one of my players was going to be running sort of a mini campaign for a couple of months at least. Life came at her pretty hard with a move and stuff going on. So she just doesn't have the bandwidth to pull it off now, which, hey, whatever. Totally understand. Which has left us in a position where it's like, well, we could fully sort of call it for the summer. And we kind of are, because I'm going to run a session 0 Tuesday. We're then taking a week off because I got a couple players that are going to be away. And then we'll do session 1, like, what's that, the first Tuesday in September. So summer's basically over at that point. I mean, you'll probably have snow by then. So
usually not until the first week of October.
So anyway, this game that I'm kicking off, as we sort of discussed, is homebrew setting, which for a big campaign thing is newish to me. Like I've always run homebrew, but I've often leaned on either existing sort of settings, repurpose some stuff, or I intentionally ran games for players that were newer. So I wanted to be like, hey, this is kind of loosely based in like Faerun or Sword Coast, but like not the Sword Coast, but things like maps and stuff. The basics of like, where do the elves come from? That kind of stuff sort of applied so that new players would have the most out there resources to sort of lean on. My players are all vets now. I mean, this group, several of them have been with me for more than 3 years.
That's a long time.
That is a long time. We never reached like the ultimate climax of what would have been that old campaign. We've just put it on the shelf. It's been sort of 2 years of like save the world stakes. And I kind of want to pull it back. It can be an urban campaign, sort of a funky sort of setting. And I've sort of painted that picture, so I won't get into it too much here. But what I wanted to talk about specifically is creature and monster design, and then bad guys, to see if you have any sort of ways that you look at doing either of these. Now, I'll caveat creature and monster design first by saying that generally speaking, I believe that dogs should be dogs and horses should be horses. We've talked about this when we talk about fantasy books a lot. Like, you don't just want to invent a word that has, like, it sounds like you're gargling bees, just to have a different word that means dog. You definitely want to have some fantastic beasts that have fantastic names, but when you mean dog, call it a dog. When you mean horse, call it a horse. in my particular setting, I have people that have been generations removed, transported to a new world. And this world has the equivalent of things that would have been like the horses that they had back at home. So we call them horses.
Well, yeah. I mean, the AI that you repurposed in order to save the world just made a robot horse for you to ride around.
It's true. But I do have a few sort of interesting things that I'm trying to achieve in this world. Some of it's just to ratchet up the strangeness. Some of it is just to create a sense of danger. And some of it is sort of to hand wave away some of the sort of unique characteristics of the world. And one of the things that I want to do, have you ever seen the movie Pitch Black?
Yes.
For those that haven't seen it, it's the first movie in the sort of Riddick series of movies. Vin Diesel. It goes way, way, way back. It's actually a pretty old movie in the grand scheme of things. I think it was made on a budget of like, I don't know, $5 million. Like it was cheap.
$10 in a can of beans. It's also the only movie in the Riddick Chronicles worth watching.
Yeah, you know what? I watch Chronicles of Riddick as a guilty pleasure because it is very much one of those like, this is so intentionally bad that I love the fuck out of it. And it is such a departure from what Pitch Black was that it's like, how are these, aside from this being Vin Diesel and this character being called Riddick, like how are they even quasi-related?
They're not.
We've gone from prison guy that can see well in the dark to basically Superman.
Yeah. Well, it's exactly the same plot and character arc as the Fast and Furious movies, which is also a Vin Diesel vehicle.
Yeah, I'm starting to think there's maybe a common thread there.
Or Triple X if you want to do that too. I mean, it's exactly the same thing.
The Pitch Black movie has this sort of basic, it's not entirely original setup. These people are in a strange world. I can't remember if they crash landed. I think they did. And there's all sorts of creatures that sort of basically come out on this sort of cycle that has to do with an eclipse. And basically there's this like time once every 70 years or whatever it is that this planet gets entirely dark. And when it does, shit gets wild. These creatures, cleverly designed, loosely based on xenomorphs, but they're very much their own thing, kind of come up out of the depths and just destroy everything. Just everyone and everything on the planet's surface. And then they go away. Till next time.
They're locusts.
That eat people.
Yeah, they're big locusts.
Yeah. So I kind of have something like that going on in this world. I get a weird sort of moon thing that's happening. There's something that I'm calling a void moon. And there's sort of a what's the word? It's not occultation, because that's when something that isn't in sort of a shared orbit lines
Occlusion?
up. So I guess it's convergence. Convergence might actually be the right word. Anyway, where the regular moons end up behind this void moon, shit gets a little bit real on my planet. And these voidlings or void spawn, which are completely
stolen?
Of course, everything's stolen. So that's the discussion that I kind of want to have with you is when you have a vision for something that you're going to make yours, borrow heavily, how do you go about doing it?
I steal wholesale. The ideal thing is to try and pick something from an IP that is not super popular. Something that springs to mind is the creatures. Do you remember the movie Beastmaster, where they painted the tiger black?
I think so.
He had 2 ferrets, he had a tiger, and he had an eagle. Yeah, it's not important.
Okay.
It's basically a shirtless barbarian movie from the 80s. I highly recommend that you watch it just because it's that bad, and decry the cruelty of the fact they literally painted a tiger black and it died. But there's these creatures in there that their whole thing is that they come out in the dark, they walk on 2 legs, and they have big leathery wings. They don't fly, but if you run into them in the dark, they wrap you up in their wings and basically turn you into goo. Right? Like the visual is that it wraps you in these leathery flaps and you pour out over its feet like barf.
So like acidic cloakers.
Yeah, very much like that, yeah. And that's probably one of the places where the there's some cross-pollination of ideas there.
Sure.
Where, like you describe something like that and somewhat no matter what you describe, no matter what you come up with, someone will say something like, oh, like the thing from the other thing.
And that's fine. As you said, sort of in our last thing, you can just say it's kind of like the thing from the other thing.
Yes, because then everybody has a picture in their mind and it works.
For the 1 in 7 million people that have watched Beastmaster.
Yeah, everyone who's watched Beastmaster is over 50 now. Oh, sorry. Speaking of just the talking of the pitch black and the idea that you're pitching here, there's a book that you might want to read because it's very good, and B, it kind of leans into these tropes, is Barbara Hambly, The Time of the Dark. There's a series of about 4 or 5 books that were written in the late 80s and early 90s, and they're really good. And there's a, I'm not going to tell you anything about it because there's a twist at the end that will literally bend your brain. And it's good. Like, it's really well done. There's, like, no matter what you do, it's somebody is going to point out a similarity with somewhere else, and that's good. You almost have to end up doing something like make a new owl bear.
Yeah.
Right? Basically take 2 things and smash them together in such a way that everybody goes, well, that doesn't make any sense. How did that happen? And the explanation is magic. Making up monsters is something that honestly I'm not really good at, right? Because it either ends up being very, very silly, or it ends up being so similar to something else that it may as well just be the thing that it is.
Yeah.
There's sort of 2 ways to approach it. Like the regular D&D trope is that the world is full of many, many different kinds of strange monsters. I kind of like the idea of, and Pitch Black is a good example of this, where the world is strange, but there's really only one kind of monster.
Yeah.
Right. And it can be done well. I love the idea as well of doing something that is so simple that there aren't really any monsters, right? Like, especially if you're in an urban setting where pretty much everything that you come across is just another, like a human type enemy.
Mankind was the monster all along.
I have seen the enemy and he is us.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have like, rats and dogs and cats and like feral beasts or whatever, get headbutted by a cow or a goat or something. But I don't know. It's one of the things, like, I've definitely struggled with making custom type monsters. And most of the time what I do is I just lean on, here's a thing that looks like a regular thing, but it behaves differently somehow. Because more often than not, it's not especially because most of what we do is theater of the mind. It's not the description of the thing that really makes it evocative. It's the description of what it does and how you interact with it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, here's a skeleton. You've come across lots of skeletons before, and you go to hit it and your weapon just bounces off. Right. And every time you hit it, it starts to glow a little brighter, something. Right. And it turns out that it's, I don't know, like a kinetically generated nuclear skeleton. The more you hit it, the more it's radioactive.
So mechanically speaking, when you have tried to create monsters, did you ever dabble with like creating your own stat blocks and stuff, or did you typically just find something and reskin?
I just reskin.
Yeah.
Occasionally I would sort of do like mashups of things where it's like, here's something that's about the right challenge rating that has many of the abilities that I want. And it's like, oh, I want to add this and that. So I would build it kind of like a PC, but I would start with like an NPC monster stat block to start with. I mean, it's an interesting subject. I really wish I had something neat to add to it, but honestly, I really don't. One of the things that might be worth considering is thinking about, rather than trying to do something that's really interesting under the hood, think about what are the players actually going to see, right? Because the description that they get, like the interaction that they have, like, is it worth sort of changing all of the guts of the thing?
Yeah.
Or does it make sense to just say, well, it's the same as before, only this one's purple, right? Take the Diablo 2 approach. It has a palette change.
I think I'm trying to be too clever, right? Like, often that's my problem. The purpose of having these in my world is less about the monsters themselves and the idea of having this cyclic threat where people need to band together to a certain extent or they die, and the impact that that would have on a society that sort of evolves in this environment. You know, like the people that have been deposited on this world have basically been there for, you know, a couple dozen generations at this point, 700 and some odd years, I think, as sort of the number that I'm rolling with. This threat, just due to bad timing, wiped a lot of them out when they tried to build sort of their first sort of city, when they started calling this place home. And since then, they've had to go about creating society a certain way so that when the time comes, and the time always comes, they can be prepared to deal with sort of this is. And it's sort of a foil for contrasting some of the more petty stuff that typically happens when you're dealing with things like politics and intrigue and capitalism and, you know, a lot of that other stuff that I'm going to explore in the game. There's going to be this backdrop of, this is so fucking stupid. In 2 years, shit's going to go to hell in a handbag again for a couple of nights, and you're fucking around with this shit. Like, so it serves more of a like backdrop purpose than it does sort of a foreground, this is a monster that you're always going to be encountering purpose. I want it to be a little bit of a mystery. Like, there was a precursor civilization that used to live in this world. You've got ruins. Were they wiped out by these things? What's the relationship between them and this? So they kind of serve a purpose there as well. And they are going to exist in sort of the depths, you know, when and if we get to the point with this campaign where they're going to start exploring subterranean environments and stuff like that, then they'll become flavor for ratcheting up the danger and stuff that happens there. Do I need all of that? Probably not, but it's one of those things like, oh, it got stuck in my head. It'd be great if I had this, because then I would get all of these juicy things that I kind of want to explore.
They mostly come out at night. Mostly.
Yeah.
Also, winter is coming.
Yeah.
There's nothing new under the sun, right? Like anytime that you come up with it, because this is a neat idea. I like it. I really enjoy it. There are so many parallels in fiction that you can point to, and there always are, right? And then you point to the parallels, and then those have parallels all the way back to, you know, Pliny the Elder probably told stories like this.
I don't ever pretend to be original at anything. I don't try to be. A lot of the things that when I was doing this, it wasn't like I started doing this and then I said to myself, oh, this is kind of like the things from Pitch Black. It was very much like, what if I worked the things from Pitch Black into my game? Right? What would that be like? What would the impact on this world be? Ooh, that's kind of interesting. And it'd be nice to sort of explore that. There's this interesting thing that, like, as time passed in our world, technology developed and stuff like that, cities stopped having walls.
Yes.
Right? In this world, where even if it's times of peace, when you've got this sort of shit's going to swarm up to the surface, and it's, it's not going to be to the level that Pitch Black is, where it's literally like every village is going to get rolled over. Like, certain places are going to feel it more than others and stuff like that, but everywhere needs to be prepared. So even little villages, fishing villages, need to have a plan. When the void night comes,
you go into the root cellar.
Every 4.5 years, you need to have a plan for what you're going to do. Does everybody migrate into cities? Or does the village try and defend itself? Is it walled in? Like, whatever that plan is, like, that's going to shape a lot of how the society works. And that's really what I wanted out of it. But the idea of, like, in an age of an arcane revolution, we're discovering new magics. A priority for ways you might explore to leverage these magics is, oh shit, bad shit happens every 4.5 years or so. How can we use this to make that shit easier? What does that do to our cities? What does that do to... So anyway, I'm rambling at this point. I probably don't
It's
have a
good
lot
ramble.
to. Yeah. I don't have a lot to really add. Like my approach to handling this stuff mechanically very much is I know what I want and I know it doesn't exist as a stat block. Let me search through stat blocks of things around the challenge rating that, I'm kind of going for. And I often don't even like mix and match. I'll just take like a stat block and say, okay, well, that one does acid damage. I'd literally just scratch out the word acid and say psychic or, something like that, right? Like I'll reskin the monster and then I'll take its exact, almost verbatim abilities and I'll just reskin those abilities.
Sure. Yeah. And that makes sense. You can do the whole thing with just make everything a D6. Done. Yeah. There's an interesting thing to explore as well when you think about a large part of, and this kind of goes back to our first bit of the episode. When you look at what forms a society, a large part of it is what are the external challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And human beings, if we don't have them, will make them, which I think drives a lot of that. But this would be an interesting kind of world because there is an external threat that everyone faces. Like it would very much bring people together. And I think it would I almost think it would make war not happen. Like not necessarily not at all, but it would definitely take off the table the idea that, well, we have to take over the neighboring territory. Because, well, yeah, we're going to take that over, but then we have to, deal with this in 4.5 years.
I obviously haven't mapped out all of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just sort of sitting there as flavor in my world. It's not even gonna factor into the initial sort of. It was going to be a mini campaign. I'm now sort of rolling it out so that it's like we're going to start with what kind of functions as a mini campaign, but we're probably going to keep going in this world and sort of escalate stakes and start moving out into the world after we kind of wrap up this urban thing that we've got going on. Maybe we'll do new characters at that point. You can keep playing the characters if you really like them. And that's where this stuff will kind of come up more, but I'm just kind of developing these ideas in the back of my head as I'm doing the urban stuff. And we'll have many of these things that I just kind of want to noodle over with you as part of it. I think we'll save the villains and bad guys things for next episode.
Yeah, that's good. We've talked a lot tonight.
Well, before we wrap things up, I do have a couple of quick parting gifts.
And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Anybody want a peanut?
Something strange has happened, and we talked about binging YouTube earlier when we were talking about Let's Game It Out. But I've very much hit that phase where I look at my YouTube feed, and again, I don't use the algorithmic stuff too much. I look at all the people that I follow, and I'm like, not seeing a lot of stuff that I want to watch, or the stuff that I would normally watch doesn't release with enough frequency that it's like I could just look now and have 7 videos ready to go to watch. So I started looking for some stuff that were sort of in the vein. Like I looked at some collabs that some people had done and just sort of overlapping audience kind of stuff. And I stumbled across 2 channels I have binged the hell out of in the past 2 or 3 weeks. And I would qualify them as the nerdiest of whatever examples of this type of content is. The first one is Nile Red, Nile Blue. It's a couple of channels. Does not need us to plug them. I think his main channel probably has like 10 million or more subscribers. Somebody that I'd seen out there, but had never watched until recently. Just a super nerdy, like Canadian chemist, started in his mom and dad's garage coming out of school and has blown it up into this big thing where like he's moving into a new lab, like his 3rd lab in the last few years. And he has 2 channels. The Nile Red channel is a little bit more educational. It's a lot more dry. This is it's interesting material, but also if you're having a hard time getting to sleep, this might help you get to sleep kind of material.
If you're not listening to our podcast to fall asleep.
Yeah. He'll walk you through the entire process of doing something like turning this weird thing, right? That's like toxic or that you shouldn't use or whatever, styrofoam. And let's do the chemistry that's required to turn it into cinnamon candy hearts.
Okay.
Yeah. Or everything from dangerous chemicals and making uranium glass and like all sorts of interesting shit. He doesn't get bogged down too much in the specifics of the chemistry. He takes the time to sort of explain it. I'm mixing this with this. The sulfuric acid is going to, strip these off of this, and that's going to leave me with this. He'll diagram some molecules and say, now this looks almost like what we want. So what we need to do, it really sort of breaks down chemistry in a way that's easily digestible, but also like you can visualize it in a way that you almost never learn when you take chemistry classes at like a high school level or even like early university level. Really, really good. The Nile Blue channel is more like fun stuff.
Let's blow stuff up.
Let's blow stuff up, or let's do the weird shit. Like I saw this old commercial or somebody was talking about these things that you used to be able to buy called grapples or graples. Whatever they were basically apples that tasted like grapes. Somebody had a patent for them. That company's now defunct, so you can't buy these anywhere. And I want to taste one. So I'm going to look at the patent. I'm going to look at the science, and we are going to try and make this apple, through the act of chemistry, taste like grape. And not like real grape, like purple. And then he puts it in his mouth. Like he literally, like, there's times where you're looking at him and you got these weird sort of chemical reactions going on, and you're just like, dude, don't do it. Don't put that in your mouth. And then he does it. It's really fun. So Nile Red, Nile Blue, again, it's, it is the nerdiest of nerdy content. It is not entertaining in any traditional sense, especially on the Red channel. But if you like science and you find process interesting, if you play Satisfactory.
Oh, yeah. There's a surprising amount of chemistry in Satisfactory.
Well, and when it isn't outright chemistry, it's still like a framework that resembles chemistry, right?
Yes.
And mixing ingredients and ratios and extractions and blah, 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 blah. So anyway, check that out. The other one, another super nerdy channel. I don't know that he's Canadian. In fact, I'm pretty sure that he's not. Called Robinson Foundry. I watch a lot of like knife makers and YouTube machinists and metalworkers and stuff like that. I watch some more like ASMR type stuff, which is literally just dudes melting metals into ingots. Like no description, no dialogue, no nothing. It's just literally like, here's a motor and I'm going to melt it down. Right. And it's fun to watch. It's just like this sort of satisfying, turn your brain off. Robinson Foundry is kind of like that. He talks through it. Again, it's sort of educational. It's more along the line of like an Alex Steele kind of thing, without the charisma.
Oh,
it's a little more nerdy. Like you look at somebody like Alex Steele and you say, okay, he's nerdy, but he's also charismatic and funny at times. And him and his cameraman, Jamie, yeah, he's a performer. Robinson Foundry, this guy is very much still the guy that's doing it on his own in his little at-home kind of foundry that he set up, but it's still mostly casting of like bronze and various sort of alloys of copper and stuff like that, making tooling, making interesting things. He's been doing a bunch of stuff with magnets now. He had a video that went quasi-viral a couple months ago where he was looking, I can't remember the name of the effect, but you've seen it if you've ever dropped like a neodymium magnet down like a copper tube, how it sort of slows down and kind of hovers. So he tried to basically make like a cage, a almost spherical but polygonal cage for a spherical, like a ball bearing style magnet, big one. And then experimented with spinning that to see if he could get the thing to basically just kind of hover inside of it. The interesting process, again, of doing things like, let me design something, let me 3D print it, let me then take that 3D print and use that in like a loss casting process so that he can then melt the plastic out of it. If you've ever done like wax investment plaster style molding, it's very similar to that kind of thing where you then burn your 3D print out of it, leaving a reasonably high detailed void that you can then cast something like copper, bronze, aluminum, or whatever into it. And he's made some really, really cool shit. It all looks fantastic for a single guy doing it, just kind of in an at-home setup. The production value is pretty damn good. Probably not off, like it'll put you at ease just watching it. It's not something that amps you up or anything, but for the nerds out there that like the nerdy shit, check it out, Robinson Foundry.
There is something to be said for content, because it's hard to find content that doesn't try to make itself more dramatic than it really is.
Yeah.
Right. Like so many things are like, here's the drama, here's the beef, here's the thing, here's why this is super exciting. There's got to be room for, here's just something that's pleasant to look at, listen to, and watch.
One more interesting thing I just want to mention, because it sort of ties into what you just said there. There is a podcast that I've plugged before in Parting Gifts called No Dumb Questions. It's Destin, Smarter Everyday Guy. And Matt Whitman, who does like primarily sort of religious content on his own, but they have this podcast together. It's fantastic. Their latest episode, which is 209 First Day Teaching College, they got in a whole tangent discussing YouTube and the phases of YouTube, right? Like they broke it out into eras and how it's changed the content and the way content is made. It's actually a super interesting listen if you check it out. So they walked through everything to the Mr. Beast era, the post Mr. Beast era that we're kind of getting into now, and sort of the impacts that's had on how content is made. Third parting gift. Check it out. No Dumb Questions, latest episode.
Worth a listen.
All right. Well, have yourself a good day, man. It has been, holy shit, it's been like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
It's been a lot. Yeah, it's a long one.
I have no witty way to close this episode.
I mean, I would like to say that you can probably whittle this down to a solid 15 minutes of great content.
12?
12 and a half. If we had commercials.
We've been doing it wrong the whole time.
Commercials,
so, yeah. Sponsor break. This episode has been brought to you by Moosehead Rattler.
Just beer?
Pamples your moose. Yeah, I'm going to cut that one out.
Yeah, that was pretty flat. A little bit sour, tiny little bit bitter.
Yeah, it's a grapefruit.
Cheers.
Cheers. I have regrets.